Hi, everyone. I'm James Protin. I'd like to give a special thank you to our sponsors for the podcast. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. We have a wonderful show today, an exciting show, actually. Our guest for episode number 38 is Kelly Cain, and she's brought to my excitement, her son Clayton with us. So we're very excited to have them here, and super excited to have my best friend in the entire world, because she's going to do all the work for the podcast, is Melissa Magario, and in the co-host chair. And as always, Nick is behind the camera. He won't come out in the front. So one day everybody will get to see what Nick actually looks like, but that won't be today.
Yes.
So Kelly is, she's not only the executive director of the Autism Caring Center, she actually built the entire organization from the ground up over a span of 4 years?
5, yeah.
5 years.
Yeah, we just celebrated 5 years.
That in itself is incredibly impressive. But so thank you both for joining us. I'm very excited to have you here.
Thanks for having us. Thanks, Melissa,
thank you, guys.
for the introduction.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really important topic. Kelly and I have been talking offline about doing some corporate trainings together, because the topic is just so important in a corporate setting and in the community. So I'm excited to bring this to the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about the Autism Caring Center, because first of all, I love the name, because I'm familiar with Autism Speaks and a lot of different organizations, but that word caring is in my experience, is very important to this entire topic.
Yeah. So we were founded in 2017, myself and another mom.
Okay.
Basically, we're tired of the gaps that we saw throughout the community. And one of them was the lack of support, like real support, like meet you where you're at, in the trenches. Right? We're in the trenches every day, and we see all these great things being done at these bigger organizations like the ones you've mentioned, but nothing was meeting us where we needed to be met.
Wasn't getting to basically the street level.
Right. Like, it's isolating.
Sure.
As a mom, as a child with autism, life can be isolating, and we needed support. We needed caring, and we founded the center on those bases. Heidi, that's the other mom, she had asked me probably for about a good 6 months to start this organization. I was like, nope. It's enough. And then she started mentioning the ideas that she had, and I'm like, me too. So then I was like, okay, I'm in. And then she had to step away for other reasons. And so I was so invested, I couldn't let it go. Yeah. So I just stayed with it. Yeah. So.
But it came a labor of love at that point. I mean, that's something, because you started this from your heart. You didn't start this as a business opportunity. No. You started it as a mom.
Right.
And it gets no more personal than that.
Right. And the problem that I found, the issue that we run into from day one and even till now, is nobody really understands what autism is or the impact it has on the individuals or the families. Right. So finding that cheering section compared to the other childhood diagnoses is rare. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So,
yeah, absolutely.
You break your arm, you go to the doctor. You have autism, and they give you a packet like this and say, you need this, you need this person in your life, you need that person in your life, and it's,
there's not a Band-Aid you can put on it.
No,
exactly.
And now you go home with packets. So it was very confusing, and we're kind of like the hub now.
Okay.
We're trying to create a hub where parents can call for everything, just to talk it out, to find training, to find education, to get help at school, and feel like they're not on that island.
Yeah, right, right.
So,
Kelly, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, maybe there's people listening in that have someone that might really understand autism or have someone that has autism. If you could talk a little bit about what is autism.
Yeah.
And then I'd love for you to also talk about what are the gaps that you and Heidi saw that you felt the Autism Caring Center could fill in.
Right. So autism is a neurological disorder, and it affects your ability, your emotional and social aspects of your brain. So it affects your ability to communicate, and it can affect your emotions, whether that be a low level of understanding or a heightened level of understanding. It does not affect your ability to be educated or
Right.
to be smart
Yes.
or to function, right? It just, you have these gaps in your brain for the emotional and the social issues. So those are the two things that we focus on.
And I
that
never
make sense?
knew
Okay.
that.
No, it makes
Yeah.
perfect sense. And I'm glad you said that because this is not something that impedes intelligence.
Right.
Right. So
No.
there are very highly intelligent, highly
Right.
educated people with autism
Yes.
that are functioning members of society, which is a
Yes.
term I hate, but it's something that you hear all the time.
Right.
Would you say that's probably a stigma? With like,
Yes.
I don't know if
Yeah.
stigma is the right word.
You know
but
what I think? This is what I think, and maybe Clayton, you could chime in on this. When somebody says, "Oh," if I say Clayton has autism, they go, "Oh, yeah." They have no idea what
Right.
it means.
Right.
Not really.
No clue.
Yeah, they
No
have
clue.
no clue. And I'm like, oh, you don't know. So, the gaps that we saw were knowledge, right? So training businesses was the first thing that we wanted
Spreading
to
awareness.
acknowledge.
Right.
Spreading. Well, people are aware.
But
And
understanding,
uneducated.
But like they don't know. They just don't know.
Aware to the point. I love what you're saying, and what I mean by awareness is you can know something's out there, right? You can know autism is a thing, but being aware of it is understanding what it is. That's where I was going with that, right?
Yeah. So they'll say, "Oh yeah," but they don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So when Heidi and I could still remember the conversation at Eaton Park. I'm like, I think we need to do training. She's like, yes, businesses, organizations, like people don't get it. And get it, those two words have been like my thing. Like I always say, you just don't get it. And I've had to say that to friends I've had for 20 years that will ask me a question or ask us to go do something. I'm like, I can't. And they're like, well, I'm like, I can't. You
it's
don't
probably
get
really
it.
frustrating as a mother. And maybe Clayton, from your perspective, is it frustrating too when you feel like people just don't get it? Or
Always, it's a very how can I put it? It's like I try to make people understand, and sometimes they still don't get it, even though I explain into like every detail.
Right.
Like that I can't.
Right.
Like they don't understand still, and
Sure.
it gets frustrating at times,
Yeah.
definitely.
And as his mom, I still have to remind myself that he has autism.
And that's another very good point because
we've had that conversation.
you
so
don't
I
look
could say that.
like there's a person with autism doesn't look autistic. Right. So
Yeah.
I mean, this is a very well-spoken, handsome young man, right? And there's no physical identifier.
Right. So that's the first issue. You know what I mean? Like go back to the broken arm. You could see they have a broken arm.
Sure.
They need help. You look at Clayton, you wouldn't think that he would need help ordering from that very large menu.
Right.
So I mean, like that was confusing to him. So he looks to me like, I'm like, oh well, here's something right here. You know what I mean? To help process some of that out.
Well, yeah, and that's why you don't even think about that because I said that. I said everything on the menu is really, really good, right?
That's it.
Until you came over, he wasn't going to be able to choose from that menu, and that menu's intimidating. And people who haven't seen the menu here at Chico, it's like there's like a bazillion things on it, and they are all delicious, but it's like it's intimidating.
Yeah. So I mean, there's processes like that are difficult. Decision making, I think, is a very big thing.
Right.
So when he decided to come today, it was so fast. I was glad. So, because sometimes that could take a week to make a decision, and that's just part of that process.
Right.
So helping even parents understand what they're experiencing as a parent is part of the training.
Right.
Because you're like, oh, that's why he does that, and I don't know how else to say this, and I'm going through what Clayton's going through.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know till he knows.
Right.
And I don't know what he's experiencing until he experiences.
Right. You're
And then
learning
neither one of
together.
us know what to do.
Exactly.
So it's kind of like I'm going through it with him. And
Right.
so all these parents are learning with their child. And because it is a broad spectrum,
Sure.
everybody's different.
Right.
There's no big marker out there. And because of the lack of awareness and acceptance, a lack of education, I should say, at this point, it can lead to judgment, stares.
Oh my goodness.
Rude comments.
And a
people
stigma.
not understanding his abilities beyond his processing and emotional and social issues. That he has this great ability to work and, be part of the society that we're in. So, getting the training out there is very important, not just to people that are working with those with autism, but to the general public, because it would help end the isolation that families feel.
So you have to do the experiment on Jim that you did with me, because you talk about the processing. It's like a computer where you see something is loading. And Kelly did this really interesting experiment with me when we last had coffee.
Okay. Yeah. So throughout all my experiences, I've been part of some trainings, and one of the ones that I do you have your phone? Can you help me out? Can you use your timer?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
oh, yes.
yeah,
oh, right,
yeah,
right. I'll be the timer.
Yeah.
Oh,
you're going to
okay.
be the timer.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll like this.
I was like, wait, is this one of the, is this the quiz? Okay,
yeah.
hold on.
You ready? You ready? I'm going to ask him, not you, Clayton.
Okay, hold on.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Timer. Okay.
I'll tell you when. Okay. So, you cannot answer until the timer goes off.
Okay.
Okay. What did you have for breakfast?
I had a bagel.
How long was that? It was 8 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay. So the average processing time for somebody with autism is 1/3 slower than the rest of us.
Right.
So it's usually 10 seconds, but I tapped you because I wanted you to keep eye contact with me.
Yeah. No, I understand.
Not to answer the question. You had to wait till the timer went off.
I know.
See? You
Okay,
failed.
see, I failed.
You
I
failed.
failed
You
miserably.
So you failed.
I failed miserably. So I see where you were going, and I apologize for that.
No,
because that
no.
is amazing when you think about, and that's where you would be, especially in school. Now,
Yes.
I would see in a school setting, that would be a major problem.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's always been a major problem
Right.
for me. School was really hard for me growing up. So
Yeah.
Now, I think that, Clayton, let me ask you this.
just
Now, did you have an IEP when in school?
oh yeah, she managed to set up an IEP for me.
And was that helpful to you?
It was very helpful actually.
Okay.
Yeah, it really helped
Yeah.
simplify things
Sure.
going up, but it
The
was still
social part of school was what was hard for you.
yeah, the social part was
Mm-hmm.
the really hard part though.
Social part of middle school and high school is hard.
Oh yeah.
It's
definitely.
hard no matter what, right?
Mhm.
So in was it intimidating for you to try to fit in?
No, not really.
Well, that's good.
You
No.
weren't trying to fit in.
I wasn't even trying to fit in, all right? That's the best part.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That is amazing because, listen, that's a hard thing for everybody to do, especially when you're a teenager, right? Because, you don't want to be perceived as being different.
Right.
But can
Right?
can you explain to him why you didn't try to fit in?
The reason why
Do you want me to explain it? Or you could take your time.
I can explain from my perspective
Okay, go
first, and
ahead.
then you can
Perfect.
explain from yours. I think the reason why I didn't try to really fit in is because I was just so focused on like just working in like school and stuff, and and I just thought about working in school and just getting through my work, and
Right.
and I was just so focused I didn't really have time to make friends, and it eventually became to a point where I started seeing a pattern like I wasn't going up to them, they were coming up to me, and it was just one of those types of experiences that I think is very rare.
Yeah.
Rare because I'm not usually a talkative person.
No, you're not usually a talkative person.
Mm.
Right.
Especially when socializing, but no, I managed to make a few friends here and there in school, and
Okay.
I still stay in contact with some of them, but a lot of them that I made, they're going to college, they're getting their education, and I'm working now, so just sort of felt my experience. But when you're like high school and stuff, that's really where you make the most friends. But like it's after high school is when you figure out which of them are actually your friends. And, it's just
That's a good point.
it's just, it's the ones you can still stay in contact with that you can really call a friend. So it's
Very true.
it's very true.
This is absolutely true.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think from, like you said, from my perspective as a parent, like he would come home from school and he was done. right? So he would be in his room for 2 hours after school and I wouldn't see him. Like it took everything he had to hold it together to focus on his schoolwork. Even when he was in school and I'd say to you, who's your friends at the lunch table? He goes, they're just my friends. I don't know. I don't know their names. So like recognizing them out of context was hard.
Yeah.
So he'd see the secretary at the middle school and she'd be like, hey, Clayton. Like he said, everybody came up to him and he'd go, I don't know who you are. She goes, you see me every morning. And he's like, I'm like, she's at the middle school, the secretary at the middle school. Yeah. And he was like, so out of context, out of school, out of that building, it was hard to keep. So people, it was just teachers and it was just friends. There was actually no names except for maybe a couple people, right?
Right, exactly.
I'd be like, who's your teacher? He's like, I don't know their name. And I'm like, oh. So, I mean, having that communication issue, it affects you socially because if somebody says to you, are you going to the mall tonight, Melissa? And you're taking 10 seconds to answer. It's how are you supposed to keep up socially?
Exactly.
And if nobody there understands you, how are they?
It could affect the outcome.
So it doesn't just affect Clayton and kids like him. It affects everybody at that lunch table.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So then you feel like if that was me, I would feel bad because I'm a pretty empathetic person. And I would be like, well, why'd they take so long to answer? Like, you know what I mean? Or like, you guys, he didn't answer, but kids don't work that way now.
We don't, listen, we don't live in the most patient world.
Right.
So it's like everything is fast.
Yeah.
And in a school setting, so you talked about IEPs. They're an excellent tool for someone with autism. Are there gaps in the school system where some of these kids are not getting an IEP? And what happens after the IEP is done? Does it require classroom support or how does that work?
Yeah, so the IEP is it's an individualized education plan. So it's based on the individual and what they need. And some kids do need extra support in curricular activities. Some kids need an aid throughout the day. And I look at Clayton because he had an aid for a while. And it wasn't because he actually needed like help. Like it was just that he would just take off. Things got too much, he would just leave. So they were there to make sure he didn't take off. So your level of support will depend based on your needs. Some schools do an amazing job. Some people have great experiences and others don't.
So how was the IEP? I'm sorry, but how was the IEP impacted during COVID? Obviously,
oh goodness,
out of school. You know how that had to be very difficult.
If I'm being completely honest, it was our busiest year for advocacy. I don't even remember how many phone calls I took. Parents were like, I had no idea this was in his IEP. And I had no idea that he can't do this, he can't do that, he needs this accommodation, or she doesn't really understand this. So these parents, and they're working, they're busy.
Sure.
They didn't thoroughly look at the IEP, and sometimes it's nobody's fault. I'm not blaming anybody, but I think you assume that you know what Melissa's doing. Melissa assumes that you know what you're doing. The student assumes that everybody knows what they're doing, and then it falls apart. Yeah, and then there's a pandemic, and everybody's like, "What's this? What's this? He can't do this. He can't do that." You know, so it was very hard for Clayton to learn from home. So the IEPs, they need to be looked at thoroughly. One of my first things was with autism is when I had an IEP for Clayton and he wasn't doing well in school. He was in elementary school. And it was the social part that was affecting him. It wasn't his ability to learn. Because one-on-one at home, he could do amazing with me. And I hear that from a lot of parents that call in. They're like, they say he can't do this. They say that he can't do that. But here, he can spell every word at this house. Well, he's in a social setting now. This is a social diagnosis. This is an emotional diagnosis. So in that social setting, even with lights, noises, auditory issues, there's a processing disorder as well that can come with some people with autism. And that all affects your ability to write on that paper or listen to that teacher. So at home, they might be able to thrive or just in a one-on-one setting, but in school can become overwhelming, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. So the IEPs are based on those deficits that they see in school.
And your question was partially my question too, because that's what the Caring Center is for, is helping parents. So those people listening that need help, you help advocate for parents, like going into the school and sitting with those individuals.
And it's free. A lot
that's
of people,
important. Yeah, that's very important.
Yeah. So when Clayton was diagnosed, he was nonverbal. So that means he didn't talk. So I didn't know how to get used to saying those two words. Can I just say he doesn't talk? No, he's nonverbal. So he was nonverbal until he was 8. So
really?
Yeah. So he's only been talking for 11 years. And so when I would take him to school or drop him off at school, I couldn't get any information. Like, I couldn't say, how was your day?
Right.
I couldn't say, like, who did you sit with at lunch? I couldn't say, like, did this happen or did that happen? Because he couldn't answer me.
How about
you know
affection?
What I mean? So
hugging, affection, touching?
You might explain
so much.
What are you talking
Well,
about?
now you are. Now you do. Now you'll reach out. But, you know, he used to give us a lot of, I'm glad you brought that up. He'd walk backwards into me. And we got a backwards hug from him a lot. So he'd walk backwards.
Really?
Yeah. So he went through a lot. So I could not work. So I was at home with him. He had 40 hours a week of therapy. And then he did preschool. And then when he got into school, the first school that he was supposed to go to didn't have a sensory room where he needed sensory breaks. And they didn't have it. So he went to a private school. And then the following year, magically, we had sensory rooms. And the IDEA Act was founded in 2004. Clayton started school in 2009. So it was young. And I don't think a lot of the schools realized the level of support that they had to provide sometimes. So I think there was a lot of a learning experience there for everybody, not just for the schools, but everybody getting to understand how we really support these kids. So he started school there, and when he would go to school, I didn't understand what was going on. He started to fail miserably. And I got really mad at a meeting, and I stood up and I said, I want somebody to take responsibility for my child not learning. And everybody just stared at me. And one person stood up and said, I will help you, Mrs. Cain, but you have to sit down. So I sat down, and I got an advocate. But to be able to afford to get him the help that he needed, I needed to skip 2 mortgage payments.
Really?
Yeah. Because I was no longer working. These families are no longer double income, right?
Sure,
you go from double income, nothing changes. But the advocacy was so expensive that that's what we had to do. Yeah. You know what I mean? We had no other choice. And we had gone through our savings. So I know and some people out there might not do that for their child. Yeah. They might say, I can't do that. I can do a lot, but I can't do that. Like, I'm not doing that. I did it. I didn't care.
Good
like,
for
I was
you.
like,
I mean, well,
because you have to do what you have to do for your kid.
Right.
So when we decided to do the center, I was like, it's free. Advocacy is free. Yeah. And I would never
amazing.
let somebody go through that. That was traumatizing too. Like,
my God,
being like, I didn't pay my mortgage payment, but Clayton's getting an A now.
You expect to make sacrifices for your kids. As a parent, even I'm a grandparent. You expect those sacrifices. Yeah. But when life puts something in front of you that takes you beyond that, that's.
And you know what? I'm raising a man. Yes. Yeah. I'm raising a man. Yes. I'm raising women. I'm raising adults. And he needs to be able to do these things. Right. And if you're telling me that he doesn't qualify for a special like a private school, but you're failing to teach him in public school, we have an issue.
There's a problem.
Right? So that's when you
talk
need
about
an
a gap.
advocate. So that's when you need the advocacy. And I do a lot of advocacy work. And,
good for
I'm
you.
pretty good at it now, I think.
No,
I've helped some families, so
you don't have an educational background as a therapist or counselor or anything like that, right?
This is all because of Clayton.
And that makes it that much more powerful, right? Because you're not doing this for any reason other than the passion of a mom for her, and love for your son. Yeah. And that makes everything that you say incredibly powerful.
Yeah. It's hard to watch somebody go through something and know that you can know how to help them. But you just say, I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I don't you know what I mean? You just have to do it. Like I still know when I put my feet on the floor every morning that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Yeah. And when that calling stops or I put my feet on the floor and it's like, oh, I don't want to do that. Maybe I won't. But I can't imagine not doing the center. Yeah. We just got more space. Yeah. So I'm very excited. We just kind of expanded a little bit. Huh, Clay?
Yeah, we did.
We could do some nice trainings there.
I love that he says, yeah, we did, because I can't get him to come to anything I have at the center.
I think that's going to change. I mean, it's changing with the podcast. So.
Yeah.
He does. He's been very helpful in the education as well. So, do you want to tell him what happened at West Allegheny?
Do
you remember what Mrs. Adams
specifically?
When you would speak to the paraprofessionals?
Oh yeah. So, mom had a very how do I put this? Very talented woman, I could say, or
me.
Take
No, man.
your time.
Take your time. Yeah, we have plenty of time.
He knows it takes 10 seconds.
I know.
But no,
my mom met this woman named Tammy Adams, and she was all for what mom was doing and all this stuff. And she at the time, mom was having meetings at different schools and speaking and teaching, advocating for me and other parents. And Tammy Adams was interested for us to she actually wanted me to speak at the meetings at the school. And we started this probably in late 2019, I guess. And it was going good for a while. And, the first meeting we had was definitely successful. Yeah. But but then COVID hit, and we had no choice but to stop.
Yeah. So what happened was, and Clayton's being,
I'm telling from my perspective.
He's not giving himself enough credit, but
humble.
I'm a very humble person. According to some people,
humility's a good thing.
I was just telling from my perspective, but.
So he loves history class, and he got up in front of history class and gave a speech, and the teacher couldn't believe the speech that he gave.
Wow,
and
nice.
Let Mrs. Adams know, who's the special education director, and he did so well. The guy filmed him and said it. And so Tammy's like, "Hey Kelly, I've seen you at some meetings. Blah blah blah. I'd like to have Clayton come in and talk during professional training hour for the paraprofessionals. So they're the ones that assist the kids, help with instruction, keep them calm, support them. Are amazing people that do that type of work.
Right.
So Clayton started to go in that year, and he would talk at their para hour or their training hour, and they would ask him, like, we're talking now, just what bothers you the most in school? What was the biggest thing you wish people knew? Like, how can we help? And he did that at elementary level, but when we went to get into the middle school and high school level, COVID hit.
Yes.
So we didn't continue with that, and then we made it through. We couldn't do anything like that after he went back to school because he graduated.
Right.
So it's been a process.
Right.
So he was pretty good as being an advocate for the kids that were in back of him too.
Yeah.
And the advocacy that you're doing through the center is definitely uphill, right? I think you would say it's an uphill battle, but you're advocating for the parents and on the educational front, and even in the community setting too, because we talk a lot about her training law enforcement officers, fire. I mean, it's everywhere. So so I have trained a fire department, couple fire departments, and that came out of the reason for that was, and I don't know if Clayton will remember this, but there was a mother, her name was Feta, and her son's name is Muhammad. She was a big autism advocate in California. Okay. Started out kind of the way I did, had a son with autism, saw a wall, went through it, became vice president of the Autism Society, just an amazing woman. And I followed her on social media. There was a fire in her home in California. Her son lived with her. Reminded me a lot of Clay, big in stature, big smile on his face. She lived with her sister and her niece. There was a fire. Her sister, they all made it out, but Muhammad hadn't come out of the house. So she went back in to get him, and he wouldn't come out. And sadly, they both died in the fire. It was September 26th. And I sat there and read that story, and I cried.
Oh my God, yes.
And I cried. And I came home, and I said to Clay, hey, if I said, hey, there's a fire, would you come out? And he goes, why? And then I asked him a couple other questions, and I realized, those times that I spoke about that he was nonverbal and in school and just trying to figure out why the lights weren't bugging anybody else and why he couldn't talk and everybody else could. Right. He wasn't paying attention to fire safety training. Right. He wasn't participating in assemblies. He couldn't. So I said, well, we got to train some fire departments. So I use their story throughout the fire department training. I talk about different places and what happens to people with autism when they get overwhelmed. Clayton, you don't run anymore, but you used to run, and I know sometimes you want to run. Right? Yeah.
I can still run. I don't know.
You still take off, yeah.
I don't know what she's talking about, but I can still run.
Nipple ratio.
Maybe not as fast, but
No, I don't mean run, but like when you get overwhelmed in a situation, you like to leave the situation.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
so-
Well, I don't run off anymore. Is what she's trying to say.
Yeah, I don't run
Good,
off. I'm
good.
sorry, I left that word
Okay.
off. I just said run. So
Yeah.
see,
Oh,
here
no,
we-
he got
this
it.
is
Yeah.
the,
I-
this
I'm
is where we're
with
at.
you. I'm with you.
Yeah, so a lot of, there's a lot of safety issues that police officers, fire department, first responders, they might not know to do in a situation. Even if you say, he has autism, okay, but do you know how to speak to him? Because did you just see that little exchange we had there?
That's exactly right. And
So
I
there's
immediately
a
jumped to
deficit.
law enforcement because, that's such communication in that situation. God forbid Clayton was out and was, for whatever reason, confronted by a police officer.
Yeah.
Right? With best of intentions on both sides, that communication gap could be a major issue.
Yes.
Yeah. And there are behaviors and characteristics of people with autism that may look like, there's something wrong. Or like they might be on drugs or they might have that.
Something out of the normal.
Yeah. And in the training, we talk about that. And, we give examples of what that would look like. And I did North Fayette Township Board of Supervisors. I did their training. And the chief of police was on that board. And he's like, oh my gosh.
Is he the one that lives near the water, right?
Oh, no, that was somebody else.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
that was a different training. And he was like, oh my gosh, we got to get this training in here. Like they could see it. You have to understand that even though these kids aren't in school anymore, they still have a disability.
Well,
they still have the disability doesn't go away.
I would think that some of the normal behaviors of an autistic person would be similar, if not the same, as behaviors that law enforcement officers are taught to look for with in a drug situation or some sort of a mental health situation, right? And not be able to distinguish what is what.
Right. And there's some, and so that for some reason, I don't know why, but statistics show somebody with a disability is more likely to be involved with a law enforcement or in an emergency situation than you or I. So, I mean, they need to be aware, and that training should be happening everywhere.
Absolutely.
And we even talked to in the corporate setting. I wonder how many. I think we talked about missed opportunities where managers just don't understand. They're about to hire someone amazing, and they're just confused. They may not know.
Right. So we did a corporate training. Some of our sponsorships that we have include training and sponsorship. Not everybody takes advantage of them, but one company did, and I did a training, and I talked about that. I talked about the effect it has on, a mom coming to work, and if you hire somebody with autism, what you might be seeing, why they might not be going to lunch with everybody else. They might not seem like that team player, but that's not it. They love you. They just don't want to have lunch with you. Right?
Exactly.
No, you're exactly right. And I think that's something that, I have some colleagues in my company. I really would like to take that further and learn about that because I think that's a big deal. Companies now, the buzzwords are, diversity, equity, inclusion, and all these different things. And you immediately think about race, you think about gender, you think about LGBTQ and all those things. But this is a major issue, and not even in hiring a person with autism, but a mom, because everything that you have described that you've gone through, that would impact a professional career.
Yes, and it did. Yeah, so I always worked, and I tried to go back to work. I worked at a medical billing office, and the person that my mom was taking care of Clayton, getting him on and off the bus, he was very comfortable with her, and she had her knee operated on, and for some reason, that changed how he looked at her, and he wouldn't let my mom touch him, get him dressed, pack his lunch, put him on the bus, anything. So I took FMLA 9 to 3, and a year went by, and he still would not. So I had to stop working.
Right.
So that totally affected everything. And then we needed the advocacy. So now we're down another. You know what I mean? And the school never quit calling. Like I'm like, hello, Clayton's doing this. What do we do? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm at work.
Yeah.
So I think that's another thing parents should remember is just because the school has accepted your child into a public education doesn't mean they exactly know what to do for him.
Right.
Sure.
And just because it's special education doesn't mean they know autism.
Yeah.
Right.
And you assume as a parent that if it's special education or, if it's not a specialized school, they probably don't understand autism.
Yeah.
So you should probably have an advocate with you, have some training, make sure they have training for that school.
Do you think this is something that is misdiagnosed, especially at a young age?
I don't know. Right now it's 1 in 44 adolescents are diagnosed with autism. When Clayton was diagnosed, it was 1 in, I think it was 145. I don't know if the diagnoses
you
have
hear
gone.
about ADHD and attention deficit syndrome and something like that. So, how do you differentiate, in say a 7 or 8 year old child between that and Asperger's, for example?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that and like really, there are just kids who are just socially backward.
Yeah.
Who don't like, aren't comfortable in those situations, and maybe they, as they mature and they become, that goes away. But in that elementary situation, I would think it would be next to impossible to differentiate between two things.
Or
like that.
to your point, you said maybe misdiagnosed, but after COVID, not diagnosed. Like
Or
how
not
many
diagnosed,
people,
right.
how many families maybe just have concerns with their child after COVID, and they don't take them to get diagnosed.
So how I look at it, and to answer your question a little bit, is it affects his quality of life. So I might have some of the same characteristics as somebody with autism, or some of the social awkwardness, or maybe some of the emotional issues, the overreacting to things or underreacting, or something, but it doesn't affect my quality of life. I can work. Sure. I can go to school. I could still hang out at the football game. I can remember my kids' names at the table. I get invited to birthday parties. I am socially accepted. Okay. I can keep up with conversation. I think when anything affects your quality of life or your acceptance in a situation, then it's an issue. And that's
absolutely.
when it needs to be addressed. So between the ADHD, there's medicine. There is not medicine for autism.
There's nothing yet, right. And there's no, this is not, we're talking about something that can't be cured.
Right. We're talking about something that's managed. And I think that's where Clayton has grown into. He's able to manage this. He's able to prepare himself for situations like today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And make,
Clayton, you have been fantastic here, right? In what we've been doing. So you mentioned, I want to ask you a question. You mentioned that you like history.
Oh yeah, growing up, I wasn't a big fan of history growing up. Actually, I had to say it wasn't until like the 7th grade. I think 7th grade, the 7th grade class I took for history wasn't like like U.S. history or some other country's history. Right. It was actually mythology history, and that's and then when people discover mythology, it's all it's all people ever talk about. And we learned about we learned about all the gods of Greece and the medieval times, and and I read like a bunch of like books about mythology, like specifically like Greece. I'm playing a game that's about the Norse mythology right now, so it's just
kind of like your favorite part of history.
Yeah, Greece is the Greek mythology is.
Greek mythology is very interesting.
Yeah, Greek mythology is very interesting because because I think one of the most interesting parts about Greek mythology is sort of it's like the same as Roman mythology. It's just like with like all the gods and all that stuff. Like they're the same gods, but they're named differently, and that's crazy. So
yeah, absolutely. My father was a history teacher. That's what he did. So so I had to learn a lot about history when I was your age because he would give me quizzes at home. But he taught mostly American history, but he taught some world history too. But I had a class in Greek mythology when I was in 10th grade, and that's fascinating. It's very interesting stuff. What would be your favorite period of American history?
American history. That's a good question.
If you have one.
If I have one, I probably. I'm a big war history guy, so.
Okay.
I gotta say, I don't know about American history all that much.
He knows about all the wars.
I know all about the wars,
because
but
there was a war, and I'm like, that was a war. He's like, how don't you know that? I'm like, how do you know that?
You can just call Jim next time. You guys can talk about it.
Yeah. Well, you know, mine was the Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
That period of time, you know, around the Revolutionary War was kind of like my favorite.
Yeah.
Time.
If I had to pick a specific period of American history, it'd probably be the era of the cowboys. You know.
There you go.
You know, because my dad was a big Clint Eastwood fan growing up.
Who wasn't, right?
He reminds me of something that happened growing up. But you know,
I've often wondered about cowboys. You know, when you see a movie, I can't imagine like riding a horse and then getting off and sleeping on a rock.
Yeah, well, you know
it's like
it's very interesting.
Yeah, it is.
If you didn't know the comfort of a fluffy bed, that would be.
I guess that would be a thing.
Yeah,
I've never ridden a horse.
No.
I've never been on a horse.
Really?
Yeah.
Have you?
I don't like horses.
You don't like horses?
Well, you know, my granddaughter, I have a granddaughter that is a horse person, and Nick's sister and his mom both ride horses. In fact, his sister's really good. She does, what's it called that she does? It's like steeplechase. She jumps and does all that thing.
Oh, she's
You're killing me here.
Equestrian? No.
Dressage. There you go.
Dressage.
Whatever he just said.
Kelly, we can change this for you. We can plan
listen, you can be.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's you know there's a lot of stables around where you can ride in. I mean, the people that ride horses absolutely love horses and will do nothing else.
Yeah, so that's actually kind of interesting to say that, because when I was actually younger, she actually signed me up for horse riding lessons.
There you go.
Right.
And
did you enjoy it?
I did enjoy it for a while, but then we sort of stopped going.
Yeah.
So
equestrian therapy was a big thing. And Clayton always had we can get into a lot here with autism and all the different things that can happen physically and mentally. So, his body was kind of miswired. So the connection's either like this or it's like this. And there's all these different systems beyond your visual and your auditory. So he always had a very hard time relaxing. Like couldn't get him relaxed, couldn't get him to settle down, go to sleep, put him in his crib, like back up, it's just crazy. And Clayton's my youngest. So I have he has two older sisters. So it was very frustrating as a parent. Like, I'm like, I know how to do this. You know what I mean?
Sure,
why isn't
not
this
my
not
first
working?
rodeo,
Nothing's
right.
working, right? So when somebody introduced me to equestrian therapy, we went, and he rode on this horse, and he had no problem. He wasn't speaking. You have to remember, he still wasn't verbal, but he'd get on. I'd be like, we're going to ride a horse. Okay, get on the horse. He'd fall asleep in a car on the way home. As soon as he got off that horse, he'd be passed out. And then he'd wake up and it would be over. But I knew he was.
But he was relaxed.
But he was totally relaxed.
But he had that,
And it was I had that comfort that a parent gets after they put their kids to bed, or after you know they're okay. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, thank God he's okay. His horse's name, do you remember?
it was Hook, and
Hook.
I recently watched Peter Pan, so
Oh, there you go.
His horse's name was Hook, and it was huge, and he was just this little guy with this helmet on, and I'm like, what am I doing to this kid?
Yeah.
But it worked, and then I think he got out. One day I'm like, we're gonna go ride the horse. He's like, no.
I
he was done.
Yeah.
I think I was getting tired of passing out.
He was like, you're not. No, I want to stay away.
He was onto it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
he figured that out.
It got hot in the summer, and he's not he's not a big fan of the heat either.
I'm not either.
I don't like Florida.
He does not like Florida.
I've been there 3 times. I got sunburned all 3 times.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We went there for 3 years. We took a trip to Florida, and every year I got sunburned.
Yeah. Yeah, we have family there. So this year when I was going to Florida to see my niece, I'm like, he goes, where are you going? I said, I'm going to Florida. He goes, not me, I'm not going. I've been there enough. I'm never going back.
I'll take your spot next time.
Been there and done that.
Yeah, you can take it, please.
Yeah. So, like I said, Clayton will never come to the center, but slowly we are building this center up, and slowly we're going to get some things in there. So we're doing a dad's day out this Saturday, trying to get some dads together and involved. It's actually in Washington, PA.
Oh, cool.
At Liberty Pole. So trying to, because the dads are forgotten. There's a lot of support on moms because they're usually the ones that end up staying home.
Yeah.
Some moms don't, but there is a lot that do end up staying home and doing all the caregiving. And that could be stressful in a marriage.
Yeah.
So,
well, you talked earlier about you're kind of learning this together with Clayton, and you are learning with your husband and your 2 daughters together. So that's
Sure.
really important to factor in too, because it's a family. It's a.
Now, how much older are your daughters?
do you know?
I lost track around 20 years old, so I'm pretty sure I missed one of my sister's birthday by accident. So
that's okay. I'm sure she forgave.
So my oldest is 25, and my daughter's 23. So they're 5 and 4 years apart. Clayton will be 20 in March. Riley's my oldest, and her and Clayton are like this.
There you go.
They are inseparable.
Good.
I think what was funny, the funniest part was when she left for college, she would come home and Clayton would be like, "What are you doing here? You're not part of the family anymore. You don't live here." She was out of context for a little bit.
Yes.
And I'm
she
like,
got the boot.
"What?" And he's like, "She doesn't live here. She's not part of the family anymore." So that was interesting.
Yeah.
Kind of surprising. And then Macy is my middle daughter, and they weren't always close, but
we're probably like this still.
they're still a little bit apart. But you
bit.
find Macy very cool, right?
Yeah, she's very cool.
Good.
I think she's the cool sister, and Riley's can be more motherly with him. They both share a love of history. That was her major in college for a while.
Okay.
They like to watch Expedition Unknown.
Oh yeah, we still
like
do.
That too. Yeah,
we still do.
Yeah.
That's a good show. Yeah.
Yeah, he likes to watch that.
Yeah.
Riley gets very geeked out over history, and like, I just.
You like mythology. Do you like the stuff about ancient Egypt and the?
I don't like the ancient Egypt stuff, but I watched Marvel growing up, so of course I'm a Norse mythology fan a little bit.
There you go.
So yeah, and like I said, I just got a game recently that's based in Norse mythology.
I don't even know what that is.
It's like Viking.
I'm good, Clay.
She doesn't like the explanation part.
I'm good. I've never got into any of that. I don't want to get it. I don't want to file in my brain for that. So I'm glad Riley can share that with him.
Exactly.
Or maybe he can meet a friend that can share that with him.
He's gym now. So.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's been interesting watching that. And then with my husband, he was a boy and he was the last one.
Yeah.
So my husband's still, Clayton was born March 25th and he went over to the incubator. He's like, training camp starts in 6 weeks. And I'm like, what? What did you just say to my son? So when there's a slow build.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Every time she explains stories like that, I just can't help to laugh.
It's worth it.
It's worth it.
So when we went to Children's Hospital, diagnosis day, it was August 2000 and Clayton was 3. And when we went, it was August, it was hot. I remember the air conditioner broke in our van. We were down to that one income, so we were not getting that fixed, and we're sitting in Pittsburgh traffic, right?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
So we get to the child development unit in Oakland, and that's usually that's a good resource for people here in Pittsburgh that are maybe looking for a diagnosis, just to throw that out there. There's always a wait.
Yeah.
There's 3 months then, there's 3 months now. We went, my husband is a contractor, so we went, he's still in his boots and, and these people are coming in and out and Clayton's laying on the floor, people are touching him, trying to talk to us, asking me what I did when I was pregnant. That's always an issue. It's like all these different questions you don't think, and I'm like, I just want him to talk.
Right.
Like this had nothing to do with this or that. I just get him to talk and I will be fine,
Right.
And I remember this young girl sitting down and telling us he has autism, and we were like, okay.
That same day.
Yeah, they told us. And my husband said, well, will he outgrow it? Because what did we know?
Right.
Yeah.
And she goes, no. And then this guy that was with her came in, and Clint said, so she said he won't outgrow this, so what are we supposed to do? And he said, your son's going to need a lot of support.
Did they provide any support after that?
So they just give you this packet. Like you get this, I can't explain to you. It's like, okay, here's all the information you need. Go find it.
Have a great day.
Really?
Yeah.
You're right.
That's hopefully not the case now.
Yeah. So there's nowhere to go.
Right.
You know what I mean? So we got in the van that day and we were, in Pittsburgh traffic leaving Oakland, where the jail is.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
And we're sitting there, and Clayton always liked to be in the car, but he was fine. And I was sitting there, and I remember feeling like, and you know this because I've said this to you, I remember feeling like I was stuck in that jail. Those people in that jail, I remember feeling that way. Like I am trapped in this car. I still have no idea what I'm going to do.
Right.
My husband's sitting there like, what just happened?
Shock.
What is this?
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of a grieving process that goes with this as parents. And then you got to try to explain this to your siblings, to the 6 and 4-year-old. You know what I mean?
How do you do that?
You got to try to explain it. You got to try to, my mom was like, oh, he's a boy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so, I mean, there was just things that now you're trying to rework everybody else's brain.
Right.
To understand this.
And process. You're just processing yourself.
So there's this little bit of a grieving process, not to the extent of somebody that has lost a child or anything like that, but just of like what's not going to happen.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So going back to the husband, it was like, you don't want to play football, Clay? You don't want to play? Clay was like, no, I don't want to touch anybody. I don't even want to be around anybody, let alone play football. So he did do hockey for a while. And that
Is that right?
Yeah, we did do hockey for a while.
Did you like hockey?
I did like hockey. The only problem is I was going through the growth spurt, and I got so tall that it became uncomfortable because
it's a lot of stuff.
I not only was it a lot of stuff, but it was so uncomfortable with the skates. Like I could never get used to the skates at all.
Okay.
Do you enjoy watching it now?
Not when it's playoff season and everyone's freaking out. I didn't actually get into sports until probably the last day of 2018, and I actually found the sports, and I can hear the comments section right now when I say this. I found out about World Wrestling Entertainment, WWE, and
there you go.
And one of the first matches I watched was a steel cage match, and not only did I find my first WWE wrestler that I like, talking about you, Drew McIntyre.
Nice, I love it.
A lot of people say it's fake, but I was watching them like, there's no way. Like some of the stuff they do, especially in
they do some amazing stuff. They do some amazing stuff.
Like I've gone back and watched some of the older matches, and I still can't believe half the stuff they do, and especially with nowadays wrestling.
My son loved WWE. Well, back when Hulk Hogan and those guys were all there, right? That's when he was going up and really into that.
So Clint was happy he was watching something, and he's just started to kind of watch Steelers and kind of watch that kind of stuff. But the hockey was kind of fun for us because we actually felt like we were part of something. You know? You do. You'll like
I watch it sometimes.
We had
briefly.
Have you been to a game?
What?
Have you been to a game?
We have been to games actually.
Nice.
We actually were at we actually did a baseball thing. Remember?
But not a Penguin game.
Not a Penguin game.
But he did the.
But we've been to
Pirates.
Penguin games before.
Nice.
We had an old Penguins player, Phil Bork. He did the podcast.
Oh, really?
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, that's.
I have a Phil Bork story. Oh my God.
Listen, we got him to sign one of the Chico Bocello shirts. She has it hanging on the wall over there. But he actually did it. It's been a few weeks ago now. But
oh my gosh.
Are you blushing?
Yes, I am. Remember when they won the back-to-back Stanley Cups? Do you remember that?
I do.
So I was in my 20s. I don't even know how old I was. Doesn't matter. I worked for a guy. I worked for a wholesaler. I'll tell the story real quick. I worked for a wholesaler who sold satellite dishes. This is how old I am. And he wanted to promote the stores that he sold to. So Phil took the cup to these stores, and I got to go. And I got in this limousine, and I had never seen a professional athlete up close.
You're like starstruck?
I was like, he walked out of his house. I was like, oh, okay. So and then I was in the limousine with him, my boss, and I still have my signed magazine that says Kelly keeps smiling.
Good for you.
Yeah. Sports Illustrated with him going in there.
He's a good guy.
My husband has one signed to him. So I got to travel around for 2 days with him in the Stanley Cup in the back of his.
That's not a bad day at work.
Yeah.
and
I was like 22. I was like, is this my life? I was so, Nick's smiling. I was like, this is going to be a great life.
He told us a story, and apparently you're part of it, because when he was, the story he told, the way he told it was, there was, each player gets to spend like 2 days with the cup.
Yes.
They get to have it, right? So somebody was going out of town, and they gave Borky their 2 days. So he had it for 4 days.
Okay.
Which apparently was way too long for him to be unsupervised with anything. So when the Stanley Cup, they put their names, everybody that was on the one, there's only 2 names. There's 3. There's 3 names on the inside of the cup.
Okay.
Okay. So one is the designer of it. Okay. One is the I guess who made it, the guy who made it, and the other's Phil Bork, because he broke it.
No.
And in trying to fix it, he took the bottom of it off, and he got it fixed. But then he looked, and he saw these 2, and he got a screwdriver and engraved his. So I get a feeling that you may have been involved with that somehow.
I don't think.
The breaking of it.
He had it for 4 days, right?
He had it for 4 days, yeah.
So it must have been the latter 2 that he wasn't with us. But it was really
an
experience.
See him drop it or
and
anything?
No. It was no, it was in the back of this limousine. We were, he had it in the trunk, but it was very interesting to me and enlightening, actually, because I didn't realize how hard you had to work as an athlete to get there.
Oh, yeah.
At that time. I was young. I was in my 20s. And I was just, and he talked about stories about pushing wheelbarrows up hills and like with rocks in it. And I'm sitting there like, why would you want to do all that?
And he had to work like really hard. He wasn't drafted
really hard.
It was hard for him. And he has a great story. But you ought to watch that show, because he was really, really good. He's a funny guy, and he told some great stories.
Right? And he was nice back then, so I can only imagine he's even nicer now. But
I'll send you that.
I had a Phil Bork story. That's crazy. So that he was here too.
Yep.
Yeah. So the in the Penguins, they do a minor special needs hockey team too. So they
very
are
cool.
involved with the special needs community as well. So this journey for Clayton and I has been crazy.
It's going to get crazier.
Just beginning.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the center, because of COVID, so we started October 2018. We fundraised our first year. Heidi's had to step out, and then COVID hit, and I was on my own. But the need increased because of COVID. So then we had to ramp up the fundraising. And so really, even though we're in 5 years, I feel like it's just getting started. I feel like everything that we're doing is just now
it's just the beginning.
Getting out there.
Is this just you, or do you have staff?
I have me and volunteers.
Tell us about
volunteers.
Is there anything you want people to know about autism? Well, wait. Are we ready yet?
We're good. Absolutely.
Good. I guess I think we've won these speeches right now. I think anyone who's still struggling with autism right now, if they're my age or not, you should know this for like years to come, that you are not alone. And if you live in Pittsburgh, and if you live where we live, and you live near the Pittsburgh area, just find my mom. Just call my mom. She will she'll make sure she'll give you.
No pressure.
She doesn't. My mom is like probably the most helpful woman that I know. She's helped me out so much, and you're not alone, okay? Like, we're there with you.
Will you hang out with them if they come to the center?
Well,
Can I get you there?
Well, that's the thing. I'm still not a very social, active person, especially nowadays. But I guess.
Your mom is a beautiful person, and what you continue to do is through the help of volunteers.
Yeah.
And so how can people jump in if they want to volunteer or they want a training for their organization?
Right. So reach out. So you can get on our website, as always, right? Everything's technology. I still like to talk. I still like to talk. And
What's the website?
And I still like to write things down.
Yes.
I'm different.
That's perfect.
I can't add things into my phone name. I just can't. So the website is www.autismcaringcenter.com. We have a major fundraiser that we do right down here in Canonsburg, the Summer Fadeaway Festival. It is at South Point every year. It was founded by Scott Snyder. He's on my board.
Okay.
His son Nathan has autism, and he wanted to give back. And he started giving back to the Autism Caring Center, became part of our board, so it's really became like our event. It's a really good time. It's always the first Thursday of August, and we always need volunteers for that and sponsors. That is our major fundraiser that brings us in the funds to do the event at the center, because everything's free. So, you have to keep that going. Volunteers are always needed. We have activities at the center. You can always volunteer to be part of that. The only thing that I ask is that if you do want to volunteer, that you have autism awearness training, and I can do that for you.
Well,
So
keep our information, because you already have one sponsor for next year.
thank you.
We're in.
That's
All right,
amazing.
thank you so much.
And if anybody, I don't know when this will.
This will be
the release will be
2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
So
So
it'll
if
be-
you are a mom, come to our conference. It's in April. It's at Sheridan Station Square in
And we'll
Pittsburgh.
include that in our post too.
Please come. You'll meet people. You will feel less alone. You'll get the resources that you need. And it is not a funeral. We are going to have fun.
Yeah.
We do self-care, we dance, we have dinner, we do all the things that you haven't done in years. And if you haven't done them in years, you're who I'm talking to. We have a good time, and you get around people who just get it.
Well, will you be there?
That's wonderful.
No.
Hey, no.
No, it's Mom's
No
Day
kids.
out.
No kids.
No kids. Got it.
Mother's
No
Day
kids.
conference.
Moms only.
Moms
Maybe we'll
only.
see
No,
Clayton,
no
yeah.
dads, nothing.
No,
Mother's
no
Day,
dads, all
no.
moms.
No, you have the Dad's
Moms.
Day Out coming.
What
Yeah.
did that say?
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's coming up soon,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Right.
yep. And so the Mother's Day conference will be this will have already casted.
Yeah.
will be
Okay,
gone. Yeah,
okay.
but
Sure.
we'll probably do another one. So
Maybe
check
I'll
the
I'll
website.
get it. I'll do a little teaser and get the Dad's Day Out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It'll be that'll be this Saturday. Scott is in charge of that. So
Okay.
I really thank you for
Yes.
shedding
Thank you
light
for both
on
for being here.
Oh my goodness.
shedding light
No,
on
listen,
autism.
we
Thank
have
you for
to.
seeing the importance in it, because
We have to thank you.
there's so many people that the effect on siblings, families, it's huge, and the more people that understand
Sure.
what everybody's going through, it's really gonna just help.
Yeah.
That trickle down
Absolutely.
effect.
And listen, you guys have blessed us by coming here. The bond that you two obviously have together is I mean, listen, it's amazing. And young man, I want to tell you something. You, for your first podcast, you just rocked it. You hit it
Total
out of the
pro.
park. You were fantastic.
Thank you so
You
much.
were fantastic. And you know what? We're going to have you back. When you're ready to come back and talk to us, you let me know. Mom's
right.
got my contact information.
Right.
And we'll have
Yes.
we'll have another conversation.
Maybe
and
right before that South Point.
Yeah.
South Point
Yeah.
fundraiser. Yeah.
All right.
We'll do
Sounds
that.
good.
Yes, absolutely.
He's got the voice for it too.
Yes, he does.
It might be better than yours, I think.
A lot.
Great.
A lot.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I
No,
really
thank you.
appreciate it. I mean, we don't get this. We never get an invite, So, like I said, it's like, oh yeah, we know about autism. So
Yeah.
the
Right.
fact that you're going to shed some light on this and maybe help some people is amazing. Not just for the center, but for the people that need it. I mean, that's very helpful.
That's the plan. Hopefully that's what
Yeah.
we'll do. And I mean, that's what we're all about here. And, your story fits with what we're trying to do and the message we're trying to put out there. And
Yeah.
so if we can get one family, if we can get one mom to come to your event, right?
Yeah.
If we can
Right.
get one family to call the center,
Yeah.
and, that, then everything that we've done here in the last
Yeah.
hour is worth
Yeah,
it, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Thank
thank you
both.
so
Yeah.
much.
Yes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Good job, Clay.
Thank you.